Hello everybody, Joel here from Golf Monthly and welcome to this special video where we're going to be having a look at the new Titleist TS irons and the 620 CB and MB irons as well. And hopefully it's going to give you a unique insight into what the new irons are about. It's a beautiful day here at Tadman. It's an absolutely stunning facility. If you ever get the chance, come to Ireland, make sure you come to a Tadman. It'll cost you a few quid, but I promise you it is worth it. Before we go and test them out on the range, let's find out a bit more of the technology with these clubs, find out what Titleist have done with these irons to make them even better than what came before in the 718 range. Right, so before we go to the range and get fitted for these irons, let's talk about the technology on all these clubs. Starting with the 620 MB and the CB, not an awful lot to talk about, even by their own admission. Titleist say there's not a great deal of technology in these clubs. It's more about feel, precision, workability, things like that, just like the previous generation. So we've got the MB, which is an out-and-out muscle back. It's forged, it's got more of a chrome finish on the back, and the CB, slightly more forgiving, bit more of a county back as the name suggests. And there is tungsten weighting in this club, but only in the 3 and 4 irons. So a bit more compact, all about feel, workability, a bit more of a shaved front edge as well, a bit more camber on the sole here to give you better turf interaction. So that's those two irons. But the big story in terms of technology is all about the T-Series models. Now the first one to talk about is the T100. Now Titleist aren't hugely keen on comparing these irons with the models that came before in terms of like-for-like replacements, but between you and I, the T100 is the AP2 replacement. So this is all about irons that are compact, played on tour, but still quite forgiving, offering a little bit of help on those off-centre hits. What you'll notice with this iron is the fact that the top line has been thinned down. So definitely looks a bit more like the CB from the 718 range. It's got a thinner top line. The sole is a bit more rounded, so they've shaved away the front edge to give you better turf interaction, a bit more bounce. It's going to give you a bit more of a cleaner strike through the turf. Now this model in the 3 to 7 iron has the co-forged tungsten pieces, which are basically weight placed right in the extremities of the head. It's going to give you maximum forgiveness on those off-centre hits, really raise the MOI of this club. So that's the T100 iron. Like I said, compact player's iron, going to give you a bit of everything, but it's not the biggest technology story. That comes in the T200 and the T300. Yep, so like I mentioned, the T200 in the longer irons, so the 4 to 7 irons, has what we're calling max impact technology here with these T-Series irons. So this is Titleist's kind of big story with these irons. This is what they're really proud of. It's something that they're going to say is going to give you lots more ball speed, but also give you really good sound and feel as well, and also more forgiveness. It's a win-win-win, Titleist say, with this club. And essentially what it is a silicon polymer insert. You can see it here, just kind of off-centre behind the face. And what this does, it allows Titleist to make the face thinner because it's supporting the club face. So it's not an unsupported face. It's allowing the face to flex, but not too much to the point that it would crack. You know, the durability isn't sacrificed with this technology. And it also ensures that more of the club face around that area is giving you maximum ball speed. So essentially it's speeding up off-centre hits. Titleist say that this is going to give you very consistent distances. Now the T200, Titleist won't want me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is the AP3 replacement. So this is the iron that's it's stronger in loft, but it's still quite compact. It's definitely got less offset than the AP3 model that came before. Bit thicker top line than the T100, and you'll notice now that the irons are more in order. Last time around in the 718 series, it went AP1, then AP3, then AP2. It is a bit confusing, but now they're going T100 is the smallest one of the T series, then T200, and then it's the T300, which we'll come on to now. So yeah, T300, again, this has the max impact technology we just talked about with the T200. This is the AP1 replacement, so it's the largest, most forgiving model of all the three. Titleist have also strengthened the loft with these clubs. So this is actually 29 degrees of loft in the 7-iron. It was 30 before. And with the T200, that's down to 30, it was 31. So those two have strengthened the loft by 1 degree, but Titleist say it doesn't matter because the fact that they're getting the ball to launch higher with this new technology in these long irons, which does stop at the 7-iron because Titleist found that with an 8-iron loft and above, you weren't seeing the benefits of this maximum impact technology, which is why it stops at the 7-iron. So that's enough of the irons in terms of the technology. I've given you a nice rundown there of what these irons are all about. I think it's about time we tested them out on the range and see what they're like.
So Joel, currently playing P760 TaylorMade. What we're going to do is we're going to try our T100 series. So it sounds like you're the type of golfer that's of a reasonable standard, wants something with a good amount of feel. This is being a forged head, tour inspired, great looks, great feel. Let's have a start with this one. Half long, 2 up.
Yeah.
Remembered. So one of the first things that we'll look at is ball speed. We want to have consistent ball speed across the face. The lowest one we've had in there is 119 and the highest one's 121, so 2 miles an hour between the fastest and the slowest. That means dispersion front to back should be quite tight. Peak height, we're looking at 90 feet, which is a good height through the air on average. Spin just over 7,000, so it's spinning quite nicely. We want to check the land angle as well. 7 iron we were just hitting there, coming in at 47 degrees means it's going to have plenty of stopping power, nice amount of spin, carry 165, total 170.
So in terms of the way it's specced up, were there any changes that you'd make to that?
From a performance point of view, none whatsoever. I don't know how it was from a feel aspect for yourself, if there's anything, whether it was too heavy or light, or would look to make any changes, but from the sound of the strike and the divot pattern that you've had down there and the flight and the land angle and the spin, looks really good.
Should we try some different heads?
Yep, let's do that. So we've hit all 3 alongside each other now, Joel, and it's quite interesting looking at some of the data that TrackMan's picked up here. Your club speed, because we've kept the shaft constant, it's been around 90 miles an hour, half a mile here or there, otherwise that's been pretty constant. If we focus on the ball speed first of all, with the T100 we were 120 exactly, and then again keeping the shaft a constant, putting the T200 head on, that jumped up to 123, so we gained 3 miles an hour off the face, and then going from the 2 into the 300 we were 127.7, which is a significant gain. Height hasn't changed. With land angle, it's between sort of 45, 46 degrees between all of them. The spin rate has changed a tiny little bit. With the T100 we were 7,000, T200 we were 6,200, and with this we were 5,500. So, but yardage, this is the really interesting one. So with the T100, which you quite liked at the start, carry was 165. That's then jumped up to 172, so we've got a 7-yard gains from 2 over 1, and then with the T300 you were just carrying that 183 through the air. And there's quite a nice little graphic on the left you can see here. We've actually got the 3 models, so the blue was T100, red was T200, and then the purple at the top there, so you can see the difference in carry over the 3 of them.
So which type of golfer would you say would be leaning towards the T300?
Maximum distance and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And then T200?
That's somebody that likes the technology in a product like this, but maybe likes a slightly more refined head, so something that's similar to a tour plate product like the T100, as opposed to the slightly bigger profile, so they're getting the looks but with the technology, and then the 100's all about the feel.
Obviously I'm not a golfer that necessarily wants to hit it loads further. Would you, I mean, I think I would be a T100 player. Would you agree with that?
100% agree. 100% agree. T100 for yourself, because it's got the look and the feel that that you're after. It's got the workability in there as well, and the performance is perfect. Looks really good.
Right, so hopefully that little session with James gave you a fairly good insight into what these irons are all about in terms of performance. Obviously we're going to have full reviews of these clubs coming soon in terms of comparing them with previous irons and other irons on the market in 2019 in terms of how they compare. It's definitely got me thinking in terms of building a set with Titleist irons. You know, starting with the T300, there's no question this is Titleist out and out distance machine, and the feel of this club was really, really solid. It's a really nice feeling actually. It's more towards a better player club than I'd say than a game improvement club. It's very pleasing on the eye, definitely for me better looking than the previous 718 AP1 model, and I think there's a lot to like. You know, if you're a mid handicapper, you know, it's a very classic looking club. It's still a very Titleist looking club, but down at address it's very simple, classic, lot to like with that iron. So that's the T300. Then moving into the T200, you know, this is getting more towards an iron I could play in terms of the look of it. I think if you're looking for distance, but in a more compact package, you're going to get it with the T200. Just felt a little bit softer for me. I prefer the look of it. It's a bit more compact, less offset, and probably goes a bit too far in terms of the distance I'm looking to hit my 7 iron. Yeah, this is lofted at 30 degrees, was carrying it a good 10-15 yards longer than the T100, which was carrying at about 165, you heard there, which is where I'd basically want a 7-iron to be. You know, this is 34 degrees of loft. It offered me a really good flight window, actually. I was really impressed with the ball flights I was seeing with this club. It was very consistent. That's one thing I really noticed with this club. It was very consistent, both left to right and front to back. It was very forgiving on slight off-centre hits. You know, they weren't really affected by this club. This is definitely more like a CB iron from 2 years ago from Titleist. It's noticeably more compact. I don't think the AP2 from a couple of years ago was necessarily chunky by any means. I actually quite enjoyed the AP2, but this is just a little bit more slimline. But I feel like you don't really lose out on forgiveness as much. You know, while it might be a little bit slimmer, I feel like off-centre hits were just as stable, just as effective, and the consistency really showed. And I really enjoyed how this club kind of bounced through the turf. You could still take divots, but just felt like your margin for error was a little bit increased with this club, just the way that extra camber on the sole works through the ground. So really enjoyed the performance of this T100. It really got me thinking about where I would want this club to be starting in my bag, because when I moved on to the CB model, I was actually really surprised at how well I struck this. You know, given it's smaller, less forgiving than the T100, I actually found like my dispersion was tighter with this club, especially from front to back. And I actually found like I struck this better. I've often said this before, with more compact irons, you can often strike them better because your focus is narrowed, you're a bit more kind of focused on the strike. Definitely found that to be the case with the CB 7-iron. But then when I moved into the 4-iron with the CB, I actually really struggled with it. It seemed to be pretty harsh on off-centre hits. I struggled to hit it consistently well, kept hitting shots thin, and it was really hard to hit, to be honest with you. It really got me thinking about what I would do with my set of Titleist clubs for 2019 and beyond, because I definitely don't think the full set of the CBs, as much as I prefer the feel of these, you know, they definitely felt and sounded much better than the T100. A little bit softer. Don't get me wrong, the T100 is a good feeling club, but I just prefer the softness of the CB. It was an iron I wanted to play, but I don't think I could get away with it in the long iron. So that's where I definitely start to think about a combination set with the T100, working in a 4 and a 5 iron of the T100 and then CB irons for the rest of the set, because that way, you know, I'd get the best of both worlds. And I hit the 4 iron of the T100 and it was chalk and cheese. I cannot tell you the drastic difference between the performance of the long irons with the T100 or any of the T-Series irons compared to the CB and MB. You know, they're so different, you know, worlds apart in terms of how easy they are to get the ball up in the air. They flight the ball a lot higher. They're going to give you a lot more stopping power into greens, and they're going to be a lot more forgiving and off-centre hits. And you know, there's some stark differences between the models. You know, I was getting noticeable gaps in distance moving from the T300 into the T200 and the T100. You know, gaps of 10 to 15 yards per model. There's clear target golfers for each of these clubs. So hopefully that's given you a good insight into what these irons are all about. I'd love to hear from you. Do you like the look of these irons? I've got the T300 here. Do you like the look of it? I think it's pretty nice. You've got the visible modern technology there. It's visible on the shelf. It really stands out, and it does work from the initial testing that I've done so far. But we'll have full reviews coming soon of all these irons, so make sure you check that out. But for now, from a beautiful Adair Manor here in Ireland, it's goodbye.